does. Thank you for spending the currency that is your life with us here together in this place. My dear co host, as always, the Big Keys producer, Alex. We are going to be joined this week by one of our favorite experts and closest friends here in the Manson sphere, Mr. James Dawson, philanthropist. Wonderful to have you, old friend. Now, we've been on this love of sister theory here for a minute that Casey dropped out the Bombay doors recently. Now, you've sent me some documents and you've got some quite developed thoughts on this, James. I find this quite interesting. Now, for our listeners at home, Mr. James Dawson is going to take it on from here with this theory that we've got.
Yeah, I found that interesting that Casey brought it up to George, and I don't think George actually ever really thought about it that much, because he was somewhat correct that Sandra had been arrested like 3 to 4 times. When she was arrested on August the 8th, that was the 4th time. But we have, if you go back to some stuff that like Aaron Stovitz had said to Rolling Stone, and some stuff that was put in Helter Skelter as well. Bugliosi in Helter Skelter says, that it was, hey, Aaron said this was like for $625 bail for Mary Bruner. And then we go to Tex Watson's book, for example, and he gives a rough estimate of what Mary's bail money was for, how much it was rather, and that would have been mostly his motive to get her out of jail. Now, one can say that, yeah, Watson had read Helter Skelter before, but how would he remember that specific amount? Mm-hmm. And then if we look down at the stuff that Melba Cronkite had said, if you read the letter, and if I can get a copy of the letter and you guys can put it out if you want, she said that on the night of the La Bianca murder, she believes it was, that Charlie came to see her asking for money to get Mary out of jail.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And there's another thing about that too. If you actually think about it, if this is true, then this does throw a little doubt on the alleged kill drive that Linda claimed that they went on.
Interesting.
Now, Sandra had a relatively clean record, right? She, like you said, she was arrested 4 times, but I don't think anything ever really stuck.
No.
But Mary actually was on probation after the Witches of Mendocino incident, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're right.
She was in jeopardy pretty early on. And then we've got, I don't know if we're going to get to that today at all, but we've been talking about reading some of her conflicted testimony in relation to Bobby Bosley and the way they put the pinch on her, just continually using these girls to extract information, hurt the family later. But in the beginning, like you say, Tex Watson may have had this motive also, because weren't he and Mary kind of in flagrante a bit?
Yeah. Absolutely. He even
I don't think that gets talked about much. That doesn't get talked about much. Could you fill us in on that, please?
Yeah, he had admitted, I don't remember the exact year, I can go back and get it, but he actually admitted that he was in a monogamous relationship with Mary. And I had heard some things from someone who said that he was teaching her how to make, he was good at silencing vehicles, like making the dune buggies not so loud. And he was teaching her how to do that.
See,
and they spend quite a lot of time together.
I love these types of details, because think about what this impacts future researchers. there's a great movie detail for you, future filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, them packing mufflers in the garage. Was she maybe doing a little methadone or not? Like, who knows what their mind frame was? You've got Leslie Van Houten, who's got a nice voice and a way about her, watching movies, wanting to get her boyfriend out of jail, as impossible as that is. Like, incredible. So, getting back to this Kafritz letter, what do you make of that directly, James?
You mean the Cronkite letter?
I mean, the Cronkite letter. My bad. Sorry. I love we were talking about Kafritz earlier. I do love her and her pornographic ways, though. I just can't stop talking about that Manson porn. So yeah. So back to Cronkite. That was I just love the way it's written too, and that typewriter font, the cursive typewriter font was real cool.
What makes me also think that would throw a little doubt on this alleged kill drive, and Casey, I think I've shared it with you before, and that's the police scratch files where apparently they may have talked to Melba, and it says in the scratch file that she could testify, but that Charlie allegedly told Clem to burn her house down.
Right. Dun, 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 dun. See, all these subplots. Again, the excitement. How could anybody leave this story alone, man? Like, just when you're like, okay, whatever. You hear something like that, I could sit there seriously for 45 minutes and think about that. Those two having a conversation, you know?
And the reason I believe it too is because Gary Hinman's neighbor said that he had an altercation with Charlie, which Charlie said the same damn thing. I'll burn your house down.
In the exact same language. Yeah. Right. And these are two very disparate witnesses that had zero contact with each other. And then the language too that Clem used with the firefighters and the different people they were having run-ins around Spawn Ranch with the dune buggies and all the chaos they were having. Talking about, we'll gut you out and hang you upside down from that tree over there. Like, that's exactly the kind of way they spoke.
While we're at it, I'm going to throw this one out there real quick.
Lynn Fromey, too. I love her, dude.
So that's what John believes. John S. Nile, right? He was telling me that in the process of making his film, this is what he claims. Okay,
right, John.
He said, John says that he was living in this apartment with the girl that played Squeaky in the film.
Oh, okay.
And he believes that Lynn tried to burn down their apartment.
Yeah, take that. I love that, dude. Lynn was so gangster. And there was a time with he gave up the reporters' motel information to everybody.
Yeah.
That was a great one. And they were like, well, what if something bad happens to me? She's like, I hope something bad happens to you. Why do you think I gave the information out? Like,
so James, that's a great connection there. I had never heard the Stovitz part as well, but that three different sources is interesting.
There's one more source. Stephanie Schramm.
Oh, what
she was with Charlie.
Can we get into that?
Yeah, when she was questioned in 1969, she was with Charlie when he went to see Dennis Wilson to get some money. And she was asked, was it before the raid? And she said, yeah, just before the Spawn Ranch raid. She said, well, I think she's a little off here because Stephanie really didn't know where she was at half the time. She thought that Spawn Ranch was in Topanga Canyon. She said, no, I think just a little after because I was staying at the ranch, not down at the canyon. And then it says, did Charlie think that Dennis would give him money? And then she said, well, I guess he did a record a long time ago and he wanted to see if there were any royalties left on it or something, but he didn't give him any money, but Dennis was home and then asked for the purpose of it. And it's, to get the two girls out of jail.
Boom. Exactly.
Now, we have one more instance. We have one more instance And that is when Linda went to see Mary and Sandra, but they were in court.
So
She went to see what the bail was.
That's right.
That's 5 instances. See, again, when you can do things like that, now we can extrapolate, we can have these theories, and we can have these conversations. James, that's incredible. That's a great bit of work on your part, and I appreciate it. Now, where do you think that put Mary then, after having experienced Hinman, after being in jail during the murders, after potentially being the subject of the murders themselves, the raison d'etre, if you will, where do you think that put her in relation to everyone? Where were her feelings, do you believe?
I think that's one of the reasons why she wanted to go back to Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Because
such heavy consequences, you mean?
Well, being part of the reason. Because even with Mary's statements, she can't remember when she talked about it when she called, she couldn't remember if she talked to Lynette or Brenda. But if we read in Manson in his own words, we have Lynette going to him and telling him that Sandra and Mary were arrested. And shortly after that, text Susan, Linda, and Patricia leave.
And I think Melba later on, wasn't she the one who helped get Michael out of Child Protective Services and get him back to Wisconsin?
She was one of the people. And I do believe that Charlie went to her because some of the people there, some of his friends were doing work for her, and she claimed that she couldn't pay them until she got the settlement. Mm-hmm. Well, that should have been sufficient time, I guess, in his mind. Hey, you got this money, you owe my friends. We got to get Mary out of jail.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. See, that's the thing. The simpler, the more logical, and the more linear it is, the more true it turns out to be. And that's why having yourself, George, and people like Deb Silva on this show are what we're all about, because it's about expanding not only the information base, but also these things that we can make more personal. Because if we think about these events and these phone calls, okay, this points a very different picture of Charles Manson than what people think about watching a Diane Lake documentary, for example. You've got a guy, sure, spent his life in prison. He's with these underage girls. You can make all these bad claims and bad accusations. But for me, what I'm understanding is there's a counterbalance to any negative elements that seemed to keep this construct known as the family together. And it was Charles seeing these people, having an element of empathy for them. Sure, there's a selfishness. That girl's hot. We could have fun with her, whatever. But there's also this protective element, because that just happens naturally. Anytime you have something decent, nice, or good, the natural tendency is to protect said thing. And in this case, it was these young girls and sometimes young men and other people coming along with them for their adventures they were having. And if you look at that and then use it in that context, he was a very distraught, as you've said to me in private, James, almost an archangel type character in these moments of extreme duress. The person he has a child with, she's pregnant with his baby. He is imprisoned by the state, trying to hustle goods and things for their betterment, right? She's out working and doing for the family, is taken in. The extreme anxiety and duress that it would put a man under is incredible. So the way you approach people is very different than you would approach them on your own. Okay. You've got a woman and child who are in the most extreme and dire of needs in this moment. My woman and child are imprisoned. You help me now. And both of these people we're talking about right now ostensibly could and maybe should have had the means to solve Manson's problems in this regard.
I kind of feel bad because I dropped it on George, kind of surprise. And but the reason I wanted to is because, James, I think you could speak to this. I'd like to hear your opinion on it. These two, love of sister, love of brother, they fit pretty well together.
Yeah, they complement one another. I believe.
Yeah, because I mean, Charlie was the system, and the system was Charlie.
Right. And my whole thing is, every single person in this picture had different and multiple motives for getting in Schwartz's Ford that night.
Yeah, I mean,
I stand by that.
Charlie was the system, and the system was Charlie, and he didn't want any of his friends in that system. Otherwise, why would he tell Bobby, hey, put it all off on me if it helps you get out?
Mm-hmm.
Like he told Mary, like he told everybody. And initially, I didn't care for those characters because I thought they were weak-minded and were doing the Paul Watkins playing both sides of the fence situation. And I didn't realize, that letter that Mary wrote, was it to the prosecutor, James?
It was an affidavit that she wrote. I think it was after her testimony, stating why she didn't want to testify, but she was threatened. And I'll let y'all get into that when that time.
Please do.
No, let's get into it together here, because for me, it was one of the most heartrending things I've ever read. It moved you to tears, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
well, I mean, let's look at it. Let's just remove this part of Mary from the situation, and we'll let you guys cover it when that time comes.
Okay.
But let's look at what they did to Sandra when she was going to go see Charlie.
Let's.
They were threatened. They said that Charlie could kidnap her child while he's in prison.
Uh-huh.
So they're threatening. They're using these little bits of tools to threaten these girls, and they certainly weren't threatening the men, but they were threatening the girls.
That's where all the leverage was. And using these babies, it was just so disgusting. And the way they would, like I get into, sometimes I'll have that rant about these newsmen who had a relationship with these ladies, who knew who they were, but were readying themselves not to help them in case they self-immolated. They didn't show up with blankets and things to rescue them and fire extinguishers. They showed up with cameras and a disappointed look on their face that Sandra didn't make good on self-immolating upon Charlie's sentencing.
Yeah. They used the girls for a story.
Absolutely. And these were grown men working for other grown men in this huge multi-million-dollar industry at that point, and just grinding these children up while accusing Charlie of misusing their own children.
I had a friend who was in Argentina recently was visiting, and she was having some issues, and she said something to me, and it rings true, and I'm going to say it now, that the whole industry, media, recording, film, it's a what can I get out of you situation.
Yep.
And y'all, if you don't know who he's talking about, she is at the apex of entertainment, has literally left the stratosphere on the physical plane and with her career. Just incredible heights. And God.
And she noticed that she's just, after this year, it's just been one slap in the face after another. And it's all, what can I get out of you?
Well, and the thing is, if they can feed on you, you can keep giving them something to eat, then they'll go away and come back. If it's clear that you're not going to give them what they need, they'll just consume you entirely and you're done. Yeah. So it's like, unless you got enough to feed them all plenty, they're just going to kill you right there, because that's all they want at that point, because there's nothing to come back to once they've stripped your carcass. That's horrible.
You're not, the media, they control the narratives. It's disgusting how the media can control the narrative.
You're absolutely right. I mean, they chew these people up and spit them out, and once
then
in
the
a
next
while,
minute they lick them out. They're licking their boot.
Yeah, there's been a few redemption arcs, right, with Robert Downey Jr. and guys like Mickey.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Mickey Rourke. Yep. Once in a while, you get one of those, but man, there's a lot of casualties along the way, both literal deaths and killing careers.
And that's another thing too, is a lot of people don't take, just because this person may be well known, they don't take in the consideration of that person's mental health. They're not seen as a person.
No, you are a commodity, just like these Manson family members. The second anybody meets them, you just start the wheels. You see the wheels start turning in their mind about what could be done with this situation, because these people have never been on a rocket ride before. You see a giant motor and you want to sit on it and get fired into space because that's what you think you're supposed to do, but you're not equipped for that. And when the astronaut isn't Yahoo to get on the thing, it makes you really wonder. And so what they do is they just fire people off into space, never to be seen again, man. Just like the character of a lot of the people we're talking about. They didn't get rebuttals. These people didn't get.
No, and I mean, the media was completely, they were unfair to Sandra and Lynette.
And as they continue to be. The last thing they appeared in, that Oxygen documentary, this is why I would really like to do a film with Red and Blue by myself so that no one gets involved, because they only appeared on that film to counter Diane and these other people and balance it out a little bit. And then what happened?
The editing's what fucked it all up.
Right. They made Red look soft-minded, a Charlie apologist. And then they made Blue look outright psychotic.
Yeah, and that's what they've always done. Because if you go back and you watch the interview like Blue did on the Ronald Reagan show, she has her notebook right there with her, so nothing could be taken out of context.
And that's the whole thing with me, where I am glad to be here, and I really hope that these folks can see we don't need these outsiders. We can do it ourselves, and they can have control over the edit. And we don't ever have to suffer through that anymore while these people are alive. To keep spitting in these women's faces is unacceptable. And I'm really glad that you're here, James, and clearing a lot of these just really horrible rumors up, because Mary had a lot on her plate with Michael and these other political things going on in her life that she needed to deal with. She had her family, and she really needed to get on with her life. And I'm glad she did.
James, it's kind of cool because you obviously know the case so well, but also you've been on the other side of the camera and you've seen the way that these documentaries go down, right? And these people are interviewed, and sometimes they're interviewed for hours, and maybe 30 seconds are clipped and put it into a documentary. George mentioned that to us. He said, do you mind if I record this interview? I said, no, it's smart.
Please
cover yourself.
he did that when we were working on making Manson, and he does it for a specific person. He was actually something he said on another documentary that was nothing related to Manson was taken and twisted into something else. So for his protection, when we were working on making Manson, he asked to be if he could have his recorder so he could have a physical copy. And of course, I gave him the transcript of his interview. But yeah,
that's awesome. And I've got a lot of those here that George gave me from the oxygen thing. Lynn gave me hers. And then when I first met George, he had given me blues. And then he asked me, how would you have edited this? And I said, I wouldn't have. And he didn't understand what I meant because I wasn't joking.
No,
we don't edit. That's why we got the clock. Like, we had a little technological gaffe on the intro of the show, Twilighters. So you'll notice the clock moved a couple minutes because, hey, man, there's no second takes on this. No. We just do it, and what comes out because the context truly is everything. It's the body language. And with George in particular, my goodness, the dryness of his humor, the way he'll let his smile sit. He's got that Cheshire cat situation, dude. He is such a funny, great guy, and that really comes across.
It was great seeing the show, and I'm sure seeing him doing the show, and I'm sure he'll be back.
I'm so excited.
We appreciate you, James, for giving us your stamp of approval. And George, obviously I know him and David had a relationship before, but
it was George
really through you that he decided to come on,
Yeah, it was George that introduced me to David.
Exactly. See, George he gets it, and for him to have that patience, especially with me, I'm so grateful for it because I know I'm so counter to his modus operandi, and he's been so great to me for so long. And then
it was good to see him on here, to be able to just sit back and cut loose,
Absolutely. And we here at Twilight love and build everything off of George's work, and we're so glad. It was just such a triumph to have him here, as well as you, James, because I love you, brother. And I just want to thank you for coming on and clarifying some of this. And then we're going to put some of these documents up so we can get to the bottom of them. There was a feeling of death.
We spoke about before, David, and I was going to bring that up today. In a private conversation you and I had, we talked about how big of a fuck up Bobby Beausoleil was on The Love of Brother.
Oh, great Lord. Yes. Yes, that was such a crazy situation.
I can't answer that one. I really can't because he had the knife in the car. But here we are, these people over here, Susan was part of Hinman. Watson says that if Mary hadn't got arrested, she would have went on Tate LaBianca.
Right.
So
and that's all in the documents that we were just looking at.
A dear friend of mine that is probably the best Bobby Beausoleil researcher I know of. We had just talked about this the other day, and she admitted, even being a Bobby Beausoleil fan, that how could he be that stupid to not only be walking around with a murder weapon on his hip the night before in Santa Barbara, but also to basically
have it on his side of the road,
sleep in the back seat,
advertising the murder vehicle.
When he could have just gotten out of the car and jumped the bus to Northern California or found some other way. But at 10:30 in the morning, CHP is driving by, and there he is.
In bloody pants.
Well, the knife still had blood on it, didn't it?
Yeah, and so did his pants. He was walking around Santa Barbara, bloody pants and a bloody knife, somehow did not go to jail, got served a meal, went up the incline, right? The great sequela.
I think the cop told him, he said, you can't be walking around here with that knife on your hip.
Exactly.
And so he walked over and he put it in the trunk of the car,
Right. Murder weapon in the murder victim's car. Oh, you're fine now. What is this, COVID? Get you outside. You're all right.
I still stand by what I say, and I'm not being derogatory towards the victim when I say it. Please. And that is Watson and I am going to say Linda, Watson, Kasabian, Van Houten, Krenwinkel, and Atkins were effective in what they were trying to achieve and do, but there were major fuck-ups along the way.
No, absolutely. And I think that the reason why they achieved anything, there was the motivation of Tex Watson and the direction of Charles Manson. I don't think that makes him guilty. I think he was taking that archangel position that we've talked about before and corralling these fuck-ups into at least getting a military style operation off and trying to pull something off. And Casey does believe quite thoroughly in this whole thing about it being for bail money. And you also point out Tex's memory of that $625, which would be roughly, you know,
For him to recall that exact, an estimate of that amount,
about $3,800. Yeah,
huh?
it's $3,800 today.
Today, yeah.
But for him to remember that
specific amount,
yes, exactly.
And that was my point, James, is that it was supposed to be somewhere, right? We see different reports, 600, 625, 800, somewhere in that range. And they come back with $72 and some change. What a failure of a night.
That may explain why he went ballistic at the Tate residence, Polanski residence.
That's what I'm thinking.
He was, according to Susan, he was pretty pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was Susan said that they were going to do every house on the street if they had to, but then they had to look for Linda.
Yep.
Dear sweet Linda.
And they couldn't take credit cards because the credit cards could be traced back to them. They couldn't take jewelry or anything like that because that could be traced back to them.
And they actually didn't recover any money until the next night, the La Biancas. Is there even an amount that Leslie took in those coins? Because there's so many conflicting stories. I think Diane said, or maybe it was Barbara said that they counted like $5 to $20 with her in coins. Yeah, I've never seen any evidence to a dollar amount in value that was taken. I'm going more off of what has been said about Charlie visiting the Straight Satans and paying them back down there in Venice that night. So I'm wondering where did this money come from, right? Like you brought up the, did he go by Dennis Wilson's house? Bo from CieloDrive.com recently just put out that article saying Greg Jacobson said that Charlie came by on the night of the La Bianca murders to get money.
So see, we've got another piece of way to discredit the murder drive, the kill drive, if that is true.
Absolutely.
If we look at the kill drive itself, from what Linda claims, she was able to point out every place that she claimed that they went to, and one of them just doesn't make any sense. It was to shoot the guy in the sports car beside him.
That story doesn't make sense at all.
And then Jerry West from the Lakers claimed to be the guy. I always love how
the part of that doesn't make sense is because when they went allegedly to the houses and Charlie didn't want to do the houses because they were too close together, but yet he was going to kill this guy in a sports car. Los Angeles, and busy night. But the only place that Linda couldn't find was the house that had the pictures of kids on the wall.
In Pasadena, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that was it. She conveniently, hell, it's Los Angeles. There's churches almost on every street corner. It's like it is here in Argentina. But it would be easy to point at a church and say that's the church,
right?
And other houses. But I think that if she would have done that and just pointed at some random house and said that's the house with the pictures of the kids, and Bugliosi and the police went and looked in the window, that would have discredited her right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She's a good little liar, that Iana the witch.
So if I haven't looked at the article, I'll look at that Bo put out. I really don't know what to think of Greg Jacobson. I really don't.
He'll throw out the occasional nugget that's incredible, but his overall credibility is so hard to take, especially, with his predilection for young girls and just his shifting sands of his motives and depending on who's paying him, what he'll say. Do you feel that way?
It's the same way Phil is too.
Phil Kaufman, yeah. It seems like these guys have definitely read Helter Skelter as well, because they start
with Phil, if you want the true story of how Helter Skelter was bullshit, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. If you want Helter Skelter, just hand him, I don't know, $400 or $500.
Yeah.
And he'll whip that one
Phil knows how to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just go with the most expensive narrative.
If you want the truth, you're going to have to cough up some money.
There's the $500 interview and the $5,000.
See, that's what we're doing wrong. We're giving up the truth for free on Twilight. We are blowing it. This is just no wonder. Oh my God. We got to start getting paid.
In fact, a friend of before I came here, I think he wanted to read Lynette's book because he reached out to a mutual friend that was my mom's and asked if we had it. And my mom was still alive at the point. She said, yeah. So I took it to Robin, and Robin, I think she gave it to Phil because I got it the day before I came back.
Interesting.
Cool.
Interesting. Phil Kaufman. What a case. I knew people who knew him through the rock and roll.
When it comes to Greg Jacobson, I kind of want to repeat, but not put it into quote because I don't want to misquote her. What Lynette said about Mike Love, finding out that there was a whole a supposed shower. You know what she said about that?
That's that alleged shower encounter that never happened. That is something I try to never overextend myself or quote my dear friend Ms. Lynette Fermi, but that is one time I've been authorized to say that never, ever, ever remotely ever happened. Ever.
Never. I've got her quote right here somewhere. It's just like I don't like misquoting Blue or George either.
Oh my God, dude, please no. God, that would just be terrible.
Yeah, I can't do it. So that's why I say something.
No, I'm good. I like my head just how it is.
Yeah, this is what Lynette said.
It's been attached to me for a while.
Now, this is where I'm going to quote Lynette. I'm going to quote her direct quote. In review of your Beach Boys biographies, I was surprised to learn of my attempt to shower with Mike Love. Ironically, he's the second writer in many months to allege a soap and water sexual advance by one of the dirty Manson girls. Mike Love's memoir may be, as you say, a better read than Brian's, but I couldn't believe anything he says. I've never been within 10 feet of Mike Love.
Boom.
That's how I feel towards Greg Jacobson.
You think about what they actually did, the actual time they spent with the quote unquote family, all the stuff that they'll brag about, and then turn around and deny when trying to be held accountable for their actions. They're in no way, shape, or form credible in my heart. They went out to the desert a gang of times. That's a huge journey. Back then, you didn't have smooth cars with air conditioning. That was a rough, long, arduous trip, y'all. You want to go out to Barker Ranch? That was a long, gnarly trip. You had plenty of time to think. You watched the sun go down a couple of fucking times and come up as well. That is not a light trip.
To clean, go or wash as well.
And they went many times. And then they want to absolve themselves and back away from their whole involvement with the family, and that they didn't make any promises, that they weren't there. Come on, dude. You're high as fuck, and these dudes are playing music. You're on acid and fucking and hanging around. You're going to be like, yeah, man, whatever you want. I'll tell you whatever. Charlie gets accused of that, yet everyone around Charlie seems to be the people most guilty of that.
Mhm.
You know, and in this case, I think it's those two cocksuckers. I think they were trash. There's proof they bought the 59 Buick at Bud Air Chevrolet in Ridgecrest, California, drove it out to Trona. There was all kinds of activities with those guys. They both admitted to being quote unquote in love with Ruth Ann Morehouse, who was 15 at the time. Like, come on, man. Which is it?
I don't think I may be wrong, and I have to look at the laws on that. But I don't think. What was the age of consent in California in the 60s?
It's kind of weird because
Might have been 15.
because she
16,
was
who
like
knows?
married, right, for a day.
Yeah.
And so like she was kind of emancipated, but then later on she was arrested and put in juvenile hall. And I know that they were trying to figure out how to get her out. And I know that Jacobson and Melcher tried to become her legal guardian. And
Man.
I don't know, Charlie wasn't having that. And
Oof.
actually it was George Spahn that went down to the courthouse and signed off to be her legal guardian. Then
Yeah,
when they got back to the ranch, Charlie asked Danny DiCarlo to basically watch over Sherry Cooper and Ruth Ann Morehouse.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. That had popped up in my head, and I was saying, what was that? I'm going to have to look at the California laws in the 60s because I know each state was totally different.
Yeah.
And what
Some of them were like 12 and 13,
Yeah.
11. You're like, whoa, dude. Like, it's not
I
9
mean,
in
by
Mississippi.
today's standards, yeah. I mean, but back then it was just the norm, and which is just weird.
Yeah, I think Mississippi's up to 11 now. Woo! Hey, fam Mississippians out there. We love you. All one of you that subscribe to us.
James, thanks for coming on with us, brother. Always a pleasure.
We love you,
Oh, it's a pleasure.
buddy. We will see you soon. Thanks for bringing this wonderful information to light. As always, we're gonna.
Yeah, I sent all that to George too because he never really thought about that because there's all of that substantiate and back it up that hey, he was trying to not only help Bobby, but he had Mary and Sandra, but they didn't know Sandra was going to be released.
Well, we're
why-
hoping to have him down here again soon, and then
Yeah.
maybe we'll have you call during that, and we can have a really, really nice discussion, a big round table. That'd be really great.
I'm hoping that the one that was proposed to Casey, I'm hoping that one comes through.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you so much again, James. Can't thank you enough.
Well, it's a pleasure
Lighters
being-
for joining us all.